everything in your fridge right now? Almost all of it can go straight into your freezer, and most people have no idea. That single fact could save you hundreds of dollars every single month. We're talking about items you walk past in the grocery store every single week. Things sitting in your pantry and fridge right now, foods you've probably already thrown away because you thought they'd go bad. That stops today. By the end of this video, you're going to completely rethink the way you shop, the way you store food, and the way you save money. And yes, we're going to cover dairy, produce, meats, baked goods, and a whole category near the end that is going to genuinely surprise you. Let's start with the one question I get asked more than anything else. Can you freeze dairy? The answer is yes, almost all of it. And here's where it starts getting interesting. Butter is probably the most forgiving thing you will ever put in a freezer. It goes in, it comes out, and the texture and consistency are completely unchanged. No weird separation, no off flavors, nothing. So the next time you spot butter on a killer sale, buy as much as you can store. Stack it, freeze it, forget about it until you need it. Butter is just the beginning, though. Milk is another one that people are shocked to learn freezes just fine. Now, milk does sometimes separate a little bit during the freezing process, but here's the fix, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Once it thaws, you just shake the container. That's it. The milk comes right back together and works perfectly. One important note, though. If you're putting a full jug in the freezer, the liquid expands as it freezes. The circular top of the jug is actually designed to accommodate that pressure. But if you're nervous about it, just pour out about 2 inches from the container before freezing. Problem solved? No mess, no burst jugs. Now here's where the dairy category gets a little more nuanced. Sour cream, cottage cheese, and cream cheese. All 3 of these are absolutely freezable, but you need to know one thing going in. The consistency will shift slightly after freezing and thawing. You'll notice a little more liquid, especially with cottage cheese. But does that mean they're ruined? Not at all. They work beautifully in casseroles, soups, lasagnas, and all kinds of baked goods. If you're cooking with them rather than eating them straight, the texture difference is almost unnoticeable. What about yogurt? Yes, yogurt freezes, and honestly, it's been a staple in the freezer for a long time. Similar to other dairy, the consistency shifts a little, but in recipes, it performs just as well as fresh. And here's a genuinely useful trick for parents. Those squeezable yogurt tubes for kids? Toss them straight into the freezer. Pull one out in the morning, drop it in the lunchbox, and by the time the kids are sitting down for lunch, it's perfectly thawed and cold. It's like packing a treat without any extra effort. And then there's cheese. Cheese might be the single best freezer investment you can make when sales hit. When block cheeses or bags of shredded cheese go on a great deal, you want to move on that fast. Shredded cheese is the easiest of all. Grab the bag, put it in the freezer as is. When you're ready to use it, just squeeze the bag firmly to break up any clumps, let it thaw in the fridge, and it's ready to go. For block cheeses, you have a couple of options. You can shred it yourself, toss it in a freezer bag with a small amount of cornstarch, give it a shake to coat everything evenly, and that starch keeps the shreds from sticking together as they thaw. Alternatively, you can cut the block into portions, seal them in vacuum bags, and freeze them that way. When it's time to thaw a block of cheese, take it out and let it sit at room temperature first before moving it into the refrigerator. This step matters because going straight from freezer to fridge dramatically increases crumbling. The slow temperature transition keeps the texture much more intact. Now, did you know that eggs can be frozen too? This one surprised a lot of people when they first found out. The method that works best involves silicone muffin molds. Crack your eggs into each individual cup, set the whole mold on a flat baking sheet or cutting board before it goes into the freezer so it doesn't tip, and let them freeze completely. This usually takes a couple of hours. Once they're solid, pop them out and transfer them into labeled freezer bags. When you need eggs, just pull out however many you want, let them thaw in a bowl in the refrigerator for a few hours or overnight, and they're good to go. Ice cube trays work for this too if that's what you have on hand. Either way, it's a brilliant solution for stocking up when eggs are at a low price. Let's move into produce now, because this is the section where a lot of people lose money every single week without realizing it. Avocados, yes, they freeze, and they freeze well. Here's how to do it. Cut them in half, remove the pit, scoop the flesh out, and rub a little lemon juice or lime juice over the surface. The citrus slows down browning and helps preserve the color and flavor. Get them into a vacuum seal bag and remove as much air as possible before sealing. The result is frozen avocado that holds up remarkably well for future use in dips, spreads, and smoothies. Garlic and onions are next, and they are fantastic freezer staples, especially if you ever buy garlic in bulk from a warehouse store and find yourself unable to get through it all before it starts turning. Just peel the cloves, drop them into a freezer-safe container, and freeze. Here's the beautiful part. You can take a frozen garlic clove directly from the freezer and put it straight into your garlic press. No thawing required. It presses right through and you get fresh garlic flavor in your dish without any extra steps. As for vegetables in general, here's one of the best shortcuts for figuring out what freezes well. Walk down the frozen vegetable aisle at your grocery store and look at what's there. If the industry is already freezing it and selling it, you can do the same thing at home with fresh produce you bought on sale. Mashed potatoes. This one genuinely surprises people. You can absolutely freeze mashed potatoes and they come out great. Prepare your mashed potatoes the way you normally would, with butter, milk, salt, whatever your preferred recipe calls for. Then, take a baking sheet lined with parchment paper, scoop the mashed potatoes out in individual portions, and set the whole tray in the freezer. Once the portions are fully frozen, pop them off the tray and transfer them to a zip-top freezer bag. Now you have ready-to-go portions of mashed potatoes sitting in your freezer waiting for a busy weeknight. They can last roughly 2 months in the freezer, though in practice they often hold up even longer if stored well. Raw potatoes in cubed form are also freezable, but there's an important step involved. You need to parboil them first. That means giving them a brief, partial cook in boiling water before freezing. It's more time-consuming than some of the other methods in this video, but if you buy potatoes in large quantities or grow your own, it's absolutely worth the effort. Tomatoes are another one that most people don't think about freezing, but they should. You can freeze them whole, skin on, no prep required. The one thing to understand is that when they thaw, they become very soft. Eating them raw after freezing isn't really the move. But for cooked applications, they are extraordinary. Think pasta sauce, tomato soup made right in the slow cooker, homemade salsa, ketchup, or tomato paste. Frozen raw tomatoes dropped into a slow cooker will slowly break down into something incredible without any canning equipment, without any special preservation process. It's one of the most underrated freezer tricks there is. Corn on the cob freezes beautifully as well. You can freeze it with or without the husks on. Just cut the cobs in half or into thirds, seal them in vacuum bags, and freeze. When you're ready to cook, pull them out, let them thaw, remove the husks if they're still on, and drop them into boiling water or pop them into the microwave. Corn stored this way lasts significantly longer than it would in a basic zip-top bag. Jalapenos are also worth freezing, especially when you find them at a great price or grow more than you can use. Dice them up, seal them in a bag or container, freeze. Once frozen, give the bag a shake to break them apart so they don't clump. Then you have ready-to-use diced jalapenos anytime you want to add heat to a recipe. No thawing needed in most cases, you can just toss them right in from frozen. Butternut squash is one of the absolute best vegetables to freeze. It holds up exceptionally well. Peel it, slice it down the center, remove the seeds and inner pulp, cut it into cubes, and seal it in a vacuum bag. The individually frozen method on a baking sheet works here too, but honestly, butternut squash does so well with the vacuum seal method that the extra step isn't always necessary. Grapes? This might be the most unexpected one yet. Frozen grapes are an actual treat, not just a storage solution. They come out of the freezer like little bites of flavored ice. They're refreshing, they're sweet, they're perfect on a hot day. When grapes go on a great seasonal sale, buying extra and freezing them is a genuinely smart move. Just wash and dry them, seal them in a bag, and freeze. Bananas are another freezer staple, especially if you find them getting overripe before you can eat them all. You can peel them, slice them onto a baking sheet, freeze them individually, and then transfer to a bag. Or you can toss whole bananas with the peel right into the freezer and deal with. They work perfectly in smoothies, banana bread, muffins, and other baked recipes. The peel turns dark in the freezer, but the fruit inside is totally fine. Berries can be expensive, especially out of season. So when you see a great price on strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, or blackberries, buying extra and freezing them is one of the smartest moves you can make. Wash them thoroughly, drain off the water well, spread them on a baking sheet to freeze individually if you want, or just put them straight into bags. Be aware that berries do get soft after thawing, so either eat them straight from frozen or use them in smoothies and baking where texture is less of a concern. Peaches are absolutely worth the effort to freeze. When peach season hits and prices drop at a farmer's market or local stand, that's the moment to act. Peel your peaches, slice them, arrange the slices on a baking sheet, and let them freeze individually before transferring to bags. Individually frozen slices are so much more useful than a frozen solid clump because you can take out exactly the amount you need. They work beautifully in smoothies, pies, cobblers, and baked desserts. While we're talking about citrus, here's a detail a lot of people skip. You can freeze the zest. Lemon zest, lime zest, orange zest, all of it freezes without any issues. When a recipe calls for zest, you've already got it ready. Now let's talk about something a little more specific. Apple pie filling. Yes, you can prepare and freeze the actual filling ahead of time, which is an absolute game changer during the holiday season. Prepare your apple filling just the way you normally would. Line a pie pan with parchment paper first, then press your filling in, shape it, wrap it tightly, and freeze it. Now you have pre-made pie filling frozen in a pie pan shape. When you're ready to bake, you pull it out and drop it directly into your crust. All the prep work is already done. Cooked rice is something that surprises people too. If you have leftover rice after a meal, don't throw it out and don't just refrigerate it and forget about it. Freeze it in a freezer-safe container. When you reheat it, just add a small splash of water first. This replaces the moisture lost during freezing and brings the texture back. You can use frozen rice as a side dish reheated on its own, or you can drop it directly into soups from frozen without thawing at all. It's a brilliant way to always have a quick side ready in minutes. Beans are in the same category. Cook up a large batch, freeze them in 2-cup portions. 2 cups of cooked beans is roughly equivalent to 1 standard can of store-bought beans. Having those portions in your freezer means you can make soups, chilies, stews, and casseroles without ever needing to open a can. It saves money. It saves sodium. And it saves time in the long run because you cooked a big batch once and you have months of portions ready to go. Pesto is another one. Whether you make your own or buy a large jar from a warehouse store, portioning it out into smaller containers and freezing is incredibly smart. A big jar of pesto can be divided into 3 or 4 solid portions. Each portion becomes a meal starter. You can use it to make sheet pan chicken, pasta sauce, pizza base, or any number of quick dinners. Now let's get into baking goods because this is where the freezer really becomes your most powerful kitchen tool. Cookie dough freezes almost perfectly. Scoop your dough out into individual balls on a baking sheet, freeze until solid, then transfer to a bag. When you want cookies, pull out however many you want, set them on a baking sheet, and bake straight from frozen. You might need to add a minute or 2 to the baking time, but that's all. This means you could make a full batch of cookie dough once and have fresh baked cookies on demand for weeks. Pizza dough is just as freezable. Add a small drizzle of oil into a zip-top bag, place the dough inside, seal it up. The oil prevents sticking, so when the dough thaws, it slides right out of the bag. You can even put together full pizza kits ahead of time. Freeze the dough, separately freeze the sauce, and keep toppings ready. You've got a homemade pizza waiting for you that takes almost no assembly time when you get home from a long day. Pie crust, whether you're making it from scratch or buying it pre-made in a box, freezes extremely well. This is especially valuable around major holidays when you're baking multiple pies and every hour of prep time matters. Wrap your pie crust tightly in plastic wrap, place it in a freezer bag, and freeze it flat. When you need it, let it thaw, roll it out, and proceed normally. Bread is absolutely worth stocking up on when there's a great sale. Commercially made bread freezes without any issues. Homemade bread actually freezes beautifully as well, often better than you'd expect. Pull out a loaf the night before you need it and let it thaw on the counter or in the fridge. It comes out tasting nearly fresh. You can even freeze fully assembled sandwiches. Ham sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches freeze particularly well. This is a massive time saver during back-to-school season when you're making lunches daily. Make a whole week's worth of sandwiches at once, freeze them, and pull one out each morning. By lunch, it's thawed and ready to eat. Breadcrumbs are another item worth keeping in the freezer. Frozen breadcrumbs stay fresh far longer than those sitting in a pantry container, and they're ready to use whenever you need them without any thawing required. Pancakes and French toast freeze and reheat remarkably well. Make a double or triple batch on a slow Sunday morning, freeze the extras in a single layer first, then transfer to a bag. Reheat in a toaster oven, or a microwave in the morning, and breakfast is done in under 2 minutes. This alone can change your weekday morning routine completely. Rolls are another overlooked freezer item. You can freeze them already baked, just like bread. Or you can shape the dough into balls before baking, freeze them raw on a baking sheet until solid, and then transfer to bags for long-term storage. When you're ready to use them, thaw them, let them rise, and bake fresh. Tortillas freeze well too. Stack them with a piece of parchment between each one, seal the whole stack in a bag, and freeze. Pull out however many you need and thaw on the counter. Pasta is a less common one, but it works. Cook your pasta to just barely al dente, drain it, cool it completely, then freeze it in portion bags. This works especially well when you're making a big pot of minestrone soup and you want to freeze portions with the pasta already included. No thawing needed when you add it directly to hot soup from frozen. Flour can be frozen too, which extends its shelf life significantly. Whole wheat flour in particular can go rancid sitting in a warm pantry over time. Moving it to the freezer solves that problem. For bulk flour storage, sealing it in vacuum bags inside another bag gives you an even longer preservation window. Nuts benefit from the same approach. Nuts contain natural oils that can go rancid at room temperature over time, especially in a warm kitchen. Keeping them in the freezer dramatically extends freshness, and they're ready to use straight from frozen in most recipes. Now let's get into meat, because this is where the freezer saves the most money for most households. Anytime lunch meats go on sale, buy extra. Deli ham, turkey, sliced chicken, they all freeze. Pepperoni and salami freeze especially well and are incredibly useful to have ready for homemade pizzas, sandwiches, and charcuterie boards. Ground beef is one of the most practical things to keep stocked in the freezer. When you find a great price, buy as much as your budget allows and freeze it raw in portion sizes that match how you cook. Alternatively, if you've thawed ground beef, cooked it up, and then don't end up using all of it, you can freeze it again after cooking. Pre-cooked ground beef in the freezer is a serious time saver. On a busy night, you pull out a container of already cooked beef and you're halfway done making tacos, a casserole, or a pasta dish before you've even turned on the stove. Ground sausage works the same way. Cook up an entire package, let it cool, freeze it in portions. Now you have cooked sausage ready to add to breakfast casseroles, pasta sauces, soups, or anything else on short notice without any additional cooking time. For raw poultry and larger cuts of pork, the one thing to be really careful about is freezer burn. Chicken breasts, turkey cutlets, and pork loin can develop freezer burn more quickly than other meats if they're not wrapped and sealed properly. The solution is to wrap them tightly first in plastic wrap or butcher paper before placing them into your freezer bag. Removing as much air as possible before sealing makes a significant difference in how long the quality holds. With proper storage, raw meats can stay in great condition well beyond a year in the freezer. The key is sealing out air and keeping the temperature consistent. A vacuum sealer is one of the best investments you can make if you're serious about freezer storage. It removes virtually all the air from the bag, which is the primary cause of freezer burn and flavor loss over time. If you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can also use the water displacement method with a zip-top bag. Partially seal the bag, submerge it in a bowl of water, and the water pressure forces the air out. Then finish sealing it before pulling it out of the water. Now let's circle back for a moment. The question I get asked consistently is simply this: what doesn't freeze well? And the honest answer is that it's a much shorter list than most people expect. Fresh greens like lettuce, arugula, and spinach don't freeze well for eating raw. They get soggy and limp. But if you're going to cook or blend them, they're actually fine. Cucumbers and raw celery are similar. The high water content turns to mush when frozen. But again, for cooked applications or soups, the texture matters far less. Whole eggs in their shell should never go in the freezer because the shell will crack as the liquid expands. That's why you crack them first into a mold or tray, as we covered earlier. Cooked egg whites tend to get rubbery. Fried foods lose their crispiness after freezing and reheating, which is why restaurants don't pre-freeze their fries and reheat them the next day. Mayo-based salads like egg salad or tuna salad don't freeze well because the mayonnaise breaks apart and separates. These are the main exceptions. Everything else we covered today is fair game. So what's the actual strategy here? How do you make this work in real life without your freezer becoming a chaotic pile of unlabeled bags? The answer is a system. Label everything before it goes in. Use masking tape and a marker, or buy a roll of freezer tape. Write the item, the date it was frozen, and the portion size if relevant. Keep similar items together in the same area of your freezer. Raw meats on one shelf, produce in another section, baked goods together, dairy together. Rotating your stock matters too. When you add new items, push the older ones to the front so they get used first. This is the same principle grocery stores use. Oldest product in front, newest in back. You'll waste almost nothing if you follow this simple rotation habit. Another useful practice is doing a quick freezer audit every few weeks. It takes maybe 5 minutes. Pull things out, check dates, make sure nothing has been forgotten in the back corner. Meal planning and freezer stocking go hand in hand. When you know what meals you're going to make in the coming week, you can look in your freezer first before you even write a grocery list. You'd be amazed how often everything you need is already in there. The people who save the most money on groceries are not necessarily the ones who clip the most coupons. They're the ones who buy smart when prices are low and store well so nothing gets wasted. The freezer is the single most powerful tool for accomplishing that. Think about it this way. If you buy a large block of cheese when it's on sale for half price and freeze it properly, you've effectively cut your cheese spending in half for the next few months. If you buy butter on sale and freeze 10 pounds of it, you're protected from price increases for as long as that supply lasts. If you stock up on berries at peak season when they're cheapest and most flavorful, you have access to high-quality berries all year round without paying premium off-season prices. Every single item we talked about today represents a real opportunity to spend less and eat better simultaneously. There is one more thing worth saying about freezer storage that most people don't think about. The freezer is not a garbage can. It is not where food goes to die slowly and quietly in the back corner. When used intentionally, it's actually the most powerful money-saving appliance in your entire kitchen. It bridges the gap between sale prices and the meals you actually need to make. It lets you cook in bulk and eat fresh throughout the week. It prevents waste, which is essentially the same as preventing money from going directly into the trash. So the next time you're at the grocery store and you see a sale that seems too good to pass up, trust it. Buy the extra butter, the block of cheese, the bulk bag of berries, the large package of chicken, bring it home, prep it properly if needed, seal it well, label it clearly, and put it in the freezer with intention. You now have the knowledge to use that freezer as the serious food preservation tool it was always meant to be. And if this video changed the way you think about your freezer and your grocery budget, do something for me. Hit that like button right now and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you never miss a video like this one. We put out content every single week designed to help you save more money, waste less food, and cook smarter without making your life more complicated. The freezer game is one of the easiest wins available to any household, at any income level, in any size kitchen. You don't need a giant chest freezer in the garage. You don't need a vacuum sealer, though it helps. You just need to know what works, how to store it correctly, and the discipline to act when a good deal shows up. You have all of that now. The only thing left to do is put it into practice. Start small if you need to. Next time you see butter on sale, grab an extra package. Next time berries look great and affordable, buy a second container and freeze it. Build the habit one item at a time, and before long, your freezer will be one of your greatest financial advantages. And remember, every item you freeze at the right time is money you don't have to spend again at full price later.